Hi, everyone. This is your host, Shirley Young, and welcome to Build a Wealth Strategy and Mindset Expert Talk Series, where we're going to talk about proven strategies to build wealth, pay off debt, and live more fully. I'm excited to have a very special lady here with us today. She's a fierce and focused woman who would not take no for an answer. She's full of unrelenting determination and loves having fun in life. I want to introduce you to Nafissa Shireen. She is a trained professional accountant and has over 25 years experience working in various senior executive roles, from businesses of all sizes, from small to multi-million-dollar startups and joint ventures. In 2010, Nafissa went through life-changing decision that has led to who she is today. Today, Nafissa is an award-winning master coach. She owns a very successful coaching business that helps entrepreneurs to focus on sustainable and scalable business growth so that they can create a highly profitable and luxurious business and life. What I love about Nafissa is that she is helping people earn what they are worth and build their wealth so that they can realize all their dreams and desires. Welcome, Nafissa. Thank you for being on this interview series with us.
Thank you for having me, Shirley. I'm really happy to be here.
Could you tell us about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You covered it a little bit, but I primarily, right now at this point in my career, I've left the corporate world, and I primarily work with service-based entrepreneurs who are really great at their craft. You know, they're either a coach or a consultant or a photographer, a graphic artist, or somebody who has a great skill. But what they struggle with is the business aspect of being in business for themselves. So what I do is I help them to build, market, grow, and scale their business in a way that really aligns up with their values, like really who they are at their core, so that they feel authentic in their business. Because sometimes I know when people have a passion, the business stuff can feel a little inauthentic. So we blend sound business practices with their authenticity. And I really try to help them focus on building that business in a profitable way, not just focusing on the top line revenue, which obviously is very important, but we don't want to be making a lot of money and still be broke. So we really look at how we can build this business and get that revenue in and still have enough profit left over so that they can build their wealth, create the life they want, have the experiences they want, and you know, be free of the money worries.
That's great. Could you identify some entrepreneurs' blocks that you see in your clients?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. One of the things that I found, especially having come from the corporate world myself, is there's definitely a mentality when you're in corporate to, here's your work, this is what you do, these are the corporation's objectives, and somebody's telling you what to do all the time. When you step into being an entrepreneur, a lot of times what happens is you don't have that structure, you don't have that ability, and you suddenly are in charge of yourself, and you become the CEO of your own business. And so what ends up happening is a lot of self-beliefs will come up, or self-limiting beliefs will come up for entrepreneurs. And so even though I can work with them on all the systems and strategies, because they need that, they only work if they do. So all of us as human beings, we carry around a lot of stories inside us. So if somebody has a lot of lofty goals, they want to make a lot of money or they want to build a certain size business, but they're harboring negative beliefs about themselves, about money, what they were imprinted with from the time they were a child, then what's happening, Shirley, is they're not in alignment. Like their goals aren't in alignment with what's really happening under the surface, and so there's a conflict there. And what ends up happening is self-sabotage. So some of these beliefs that you might see people carry with them are, you know, I can't be a good mom and have a successful business. I have to choose. Or they might feel that they've grown up thinking people with money are evil, so they're not going to let themselves do something that they feel isn't good, right? Even though they're not aware of it consciously. So these are the type of blocks that we'll see, and I will really get to the root of what's going on to help them get through that ecology piece to really figure out, well, what do you want? And to remove some of those limiting beliefs, because you can be a great mom and a great business owner. I mean, it happens. People do it. So it's helping people identify what some of those beliefs are. Or, you know, you can make a lot of money and still be a really good person. So those are some of the blocks that I'll work with. And other blocks that come up are things like not believing they can do it, not having the confidence in themselves to succeed, fear of what other people might think, fear of leaving people behind. So there's owning your own business is the best course in self-development you can ever have, because all of your stuff
Right.
comes up. And so those are some of the blocks that I work with my clients.
And is there I don't think there's a one solution fit all, but what are some of the solutions you give them when they have those blocks? Do you work, how would you work with them with those blocks, and how do you eliminate?
You're right. There is no one size fits all solution, and it really depends on the individual entrepreneur. Through my coaching work that I've done, I have done a lot of work on helping people get to the root of some of their beliefs about money and their mindset. And so we're going to work on some of that, and I help them identify what is actually going on, and that takes sometimes a lot of questioning, a lot of journaling, a lot of work, and a lot of coaching. That's the coaching part of my business, to help them bring that part up and see what's happening. And so if a client, for instance, has a block about, where that making money is bad, right, and they want to build a profitable business, well, we're going to take some time to put aside to the business building, because they're not going to build it if they think having money is bad, right? To really take some time and explore, well, what good do they want to do in the world, and how does that happen, and how can we use money to make that happen? And so starting to get them comfortable with the money aspect of it, so they can start to see, well, hey, this could be a good thing. I can donate to a charity, or I can provide for my children, I can help my parents. And it's really dependent on the individual to see what's under the surface, and it requires going deep, asking some deep questions, and really coaching them through the struggle, because as humans we have different levels. And where we'll see it show up, Shirley, is you might see somebody stuck on a decision, right? They think, well, I don't know if I should do this in my business. And when we dig deeper, the block isn't about should they do this or shouldn't they. We dig a little deeper. It's a block further up in their consciousness about their identity, like, who am I to believe I can do this, or their belief that it can be done. So it's about really listening to what's being said and what's not being said.
It's like
and
you
helping
have to
them
be a psychologist. That's right. It's like a psychologist.
No, not really a psychologist. I mean, that's a whole different thing altogether.
Right.
But with coaching, we're really listening to help the client move forward, because we're not dealing with psychological wounds. This is more just to help them see what's blocking them so they can move forward.
Well, that's great. Well, in some of your work, I know that you mentioned wealth consciousness. What is wealth consciousness?
Okay, well, we just talked a little bit about some of what those blocks could be, and some of them you might think of a little bit. I would call those maybe more poverty consciousness, where you're thinking there's not enough, or there's a lack, or money is evil. Wealth consciousness is the complete opposite of that. And the way I like to describe it is that it's a conscious choice that we all make to be really aware of abundance and to really recognize that we deserve financial rewards. And in our society today, the type of society we are, it's financial means that allows us to have the experiences, to have the home, to have the travel. We do it through money. So money is just a tool. It's the reward of all that is the wealth consciousness, and we want to be very aware of it. And so our beliefs really dictate what happens for us. So what we believe at our core is what we're actually going to receive in life. If we believe that, there isn't enough and money's scarce and money's hard, that's a poverty consciousness. That's typically what we're going to experience. And then because we experience that, it reconfirms those beliefs. So wealth consciousness is the opposite. We really need to believe that we deserve good, that there's enough, that there's abundance. And so when we look at raising it, and when I work with my clients, and even for me, it's a daily practice. Like I have to choose to create a mindset of abundance, and that's what I work with my clients to do every single day. And so we all come with different thoughts and paradigms, and while those are hard to change, we can replace them. So if a bad thought's coming into our head, we have to make a choice to say, like, get it out of my head. I remember being at a conference, a self-development conference a few years ago, and the facilitator said something that I thought was brilliant. He said, when I get a doubt in my head, I just stop and go, cancel, cancel, cancel. So I reset myself, and then I put a positive thought in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, I mean, I don't know if this is a good example or not, but I work a lot with animals, with my dogs, my horses, and if they're doing a behavior that's undesired, you actually can't change that. Mm-hmm. You have to give them something different to do. And then they go with the new behavior. So it's the same for us, right? We can't necessarily change our mind, but we can put a different thought in there. And so when we do that, we're consciously choosing to think about wealth. We're consciously choosing to think about abundance. Mm-hmm. And it's a daily decision. And so we have to be very careful that we're choosing our associates wisely, that we're choosing to be around people that think abundantly, that don't think mm-hmm. small or scarcity. We want to be reading books and watching, and if we do, I don't watch TV, but if you are watching things, to not fill our minds with the lack. Look at things that are going to build our mind up. And so we really, and of course, obviously getting coaching and mentoring on it. I think everybody needs that. And so that we're able to just banish any thoughts of poverty that come up and really fill our mind with this abundance mentality.
Yes, no, that's a great advice and actually great perspective, because we can apply it to anywhere, because whenever there's a negative mm-hmm. thought, you just kind of stop and reset, or stop and put a positive thought in it. You work with a lot of clients. Do you have your mm-hmm. own wealth building system? Do they usually have a system in place, most of the clients you work with?
Okay, well, this is where the mindset turns into reality, right? We go from consciousness mm-hmm. to action. And mm-hmm. so, when I work with my clients, and obviously, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, right? Right. But a lot of entrepreneurs get really focused on, they get the money in, the money goes out, they want to keep their taxable income low. There's a whole cycle that goes on there. So part of what I do when I work with my clients is, okay, let's get you making money, right? I mean, that's the first mm-hmm. step. Let's get you making profit. Now let's work with you through some of those blocks on what you're going to do about actually reinvesting some of that profit. And when I say reinvesting, not just in your business, but in yourself and in your future. And so, and I will recommend that they work with advisors like financial planners, because everybody's different in terms of what their long-term goals are. And that's, once we get to that, it's sort of out of my professional capacity with them. But I do work with them on the coaching side of things to sort of get them to understand that, it's okay to save. It's actually a good thing, and it's not scarcity thinking. You're preparing for your future. And so we work through those three basic things, like, okay, start making money, start making profit. Let's look at saving some of it. And also part of building wealth, and you had touched on this a little bit in the introduction about getting out of debt. I do work with my clients because in business you need to borrow money. There hasn't been a really successful business out there that's done it without borrowing money. What a lot of entrepreneurs do, though, is they don't know how to borrow money properly. So they're mm-hmm. either financing long-term investments like computers and desks and training that's going to be long-term with short-term credit, using their credit cards and paying exorbitant interest rates. And then they try to pay it off really quickly. Then they take away from their working capital. Then they don't have money. And then that puts them into a scarcity mindset, right? So one of the things that I find is crucial to building wealth is, if you're going to borrow, is to know how to do it properly, know what you should borrow for, what you should never borrow for, and how to properly pay it back so that you're keeping your cash flow going and you've got a firm end date on a pay down plan. So that's a really important part of wealth building, I think.
Yes.
I know.
That's great when someone comes in and they're kind of like new and they're trying to start their own business. But mm-hmm. what happens if someone mm-hmm. is already in business and they've made all these poor decisions in borrowing money? How would you work with those? And they're like in debt already. and how would you get them out of that state?
If they're at that stage, Shirley, again, the first thing gets back to their mindset, because they're going to be punishing themselves about it, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to feel shame. Right. It's very rare that I find somebody that doesn't feel shame or guilt about debt if they're in that situation. And so I work with them to go, okay, well, let's first of all, I mean, because I'm not actually an accountant anymore. I resigned my designation, but I have that background. So I look at debt very differently. Like, first of all, I don't like the word debt. I like the word in business credit, because debt is, to me, is something when you're borrowing money to go buy shoes, right? Like you're robbing your future to satisfy the present. But credit is something where you're not letting your current situation dictate your future, because you need to invest in your business. So I try to have them look at everything they owe and really sort of, first of all, let's take the guilt out. Let's look at this as just information. What are we going to do with this information? So if I find something in there that is what I would consider in my mind true debt, where it's consumer debt, I'm going to tell them, okay, you really need to focus on getting this paid off first. Now let's look at what you owe for your business, and let's look at what you want to make in your business. And I work with them on what I call like a return on investment for their borrowing. So if their intention was to make $3 for every dollar they've borrowed, then we work on a plan that, okay, well then what you do then is when you make $3, you put $1 on your borrowing. You don't put it all on there. And so now you focus on generating money and you stick to that commitment. The debt will take care of itself, right? And just look at it as a systematic payment and take the burden and guilt off. Because if you're in that place of fear all the time in your business, it's going to be really hard to be generating money. It's going to be really hard to make the right decisions that are long term. So we really pull that apart. Like I said, consumer debt, we focus on getting that out of the way. There's no benefit. There's no tax deduction on the interest. None of that, right? We got to get rid of that. Business borrowing, it needs to be paid back, but it has a different urgency. And the key point is not to make yourself feel poor while you're doing it.
Right. That's great advice for someone who's in business and haven't been very financially responsible. The next question is,
and I just want to clarify one thing on that. That thing too is one thing is I really want to make sure that they don't feel that they weren't financially responsible, because that holds them back. I want to take it like you made the best decision with what you knew how to do. Now let's learn something better.
That's great. And you take away the guilt, because a lot of people do feel guilty because they weren't, and maybe like they don't know what they don't know. And so how do you transform your dreams of wealth into reality?
Well, first of all, you actually have to have that dream, right? And you need to be very clear on what you want. If I ask somebody, what do you want? And they say, well, I want to have, $50 million in the bank or $10 million in the bank, and there's nothing really backing that up, what I'm hearing is a bit of a lottery mentality, and they're wanting something that's just going to solve all their money woes. It's not really attached to anything. So I work with my clients to find out, well, what do you actually want? What do you want? It's the wealth and money that's going to get you there. Is it the home? Is it a certain dollar balance in the bank? How do you want to earn it? How do you want this to happen? I personally love having a vision board because I'm very visual. And then, so once you actually know what you want, then you can sort of assess where you are and say, okay, well, what do I need to make this happen? Right? How am I going to make this happen? And then we put a plan in place. And so it comes back to that wealth building system of making money, making profit, saving money, and borrowing properly. Those are all part of turning your dreams of wealth into reality, because you can, anybody can have a wealthy life. I'm living proof of that. So it was just by following those principles.
Right. No. Well, which brings me to the next question, which is, what is your top 3 essential principles to building wealth?
Okay, so I've talked about a couple of things that are more in terms of strategy and procedure. I wanted to maybe address, when we talk about the principles, because I'd looked at these questions and thought, there's something I'd really like to address, and it's more about a mindset. One of the things I find, and I see this a lot, and it's a very important principle when it comes to building wealth, is I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they talk about raising their wealth consciousness.
Right.
And there's a really fine line, Shirley, between raising your wealth consciousness and coming from a place of abundance and complete reckless spending. And I see that done in the name of raising your wealth consciousness. And that's nothing's going to make you broker than that, right? Just saying, well, I want to be abundant, so let's go spend it. So one of the things that I think is really important is understanding the differences between having a millionaire lifestyle,
Right.
having a seven-figure business, having a seven-figure income, and actually being a millionaire. Those are four different things. You know, you can live a millionaire lifestyle and be in debt up to your eyeballs. A seven-figure business, well, there's a lot of parts and pieces in that business that require resources. So it's not the same as having a seven-figure income from your business for yourself. And having a seven-figure annual income is not the same as being a millionaire by having that in wealth. So for me, the top essential principle to building your wealth is actually understanding what it means to have wealth. It means having that net worth, that, you know, is it $200,000 net worth? Is it $1 million net worth? You need to understand what net worth is. And to me, that's the top one altogether, and I think that gets missed a lot.
And is there another top principle that's your number one?
That would be my number one. So I'd say my next one would be to actually put a plan in place to work towards that and have a goal of a net worth, not just an income goal, right? Because it doesn't do you any good to make $1 million a year if it costs you $1.1 million to earn it. So you want to have what that net income goal is for yourself, what your wealth goal is for yourself, so that you are consciously and constantly being aware of what you're creating and what you're building, because those are two different things, right? You're bringing it in, and then you want to build it. And then I would say my third essential principle is get the help you need, get the advisors you need. Whether if you're building a business, then get the coaching, the mentoring, the consulting, the training you need. Once the money comes in, work with the accountants, the lawyers, the financial planners, so that you've got your support team.
Great. And this is, I don't know if it's kind of, you've talked about it because it's wealth consciousness, but good mindset. How do you build a good mindset when reaching your financial wealth? And I know you've talked about it, but is there anything you want to elaborate? Because they're very similar, as you mentioned, but is there any more you can elaborate on that part?
Absolutely. When we get to the mindset piece, this really comes down to, again, we talked about what's going into your mind. And so when you look at building that mindset, I read every day. Like, I find a book about that's going to help me develop, and every day I spend an hour reading in self-development, and I think that's a really important thing for people to do. If something, you want to have a support team, and so if you do have a setback, because setbacks are going to happen. It's life, it's business, right? And so that can really take you out and hurt your mindset. So if you have a mastermind or a peer group of people that can really help you to get through that is super important. And I think also, again, it's just making a conscious choice to remove anything from your world that is going to hold back your mindset. And that could be something as simple as cleaning up your office. If you've got like boxes of paper on the floor and milk crates for tables and it's messy, that doesn't feel very wealthy, does it? It feels discount bargain basement. So even something as simple as that is really important. So your environment, emotionally and physically, very important for your mindset.
That is great. And, I know that you have a free gift for our audience. Can you tell us about that free gift?
Absolutely. We talked a lot about mindset today. And one of the things when we talked just a little bit about that wealth building system, about earning enough money and creating the life that you want. One of the things that I find comes up a lot with entrepreneurs is the fear of charging properly. Almost every single entrepreneur I work with needs to raise their prices, some by as much as 50% or more. And when we do the math, they can see it, but what comes up is, I just don't think people are going to pay that. They don't believe it. It comes up a little bit with these fears and these scarcity mentality of, I don't know if people will pay that. I don't know if they can afford it. Other people are cheaper than me. So one of the first things I always work on with my clients, in addition to mindset, is getting their pricing up to where it should be to represent the value of the work they do. And it was a little more challenging than I realized how many people had this problem. So I created a little ebook called Tips and Scripts. So it's a bunch of mindset tips and reframes and word-for-word scripts on how to answer questions about your pricing. That will really help them feel very empowered with their pricing so they can charge a lot and not have to worry about it. I give it to my clients to tell them to keep it by their phone when they're doing sales calls in case something comes up. So I'm offering that to everybody today, and you've got the link on your site and they can just download it.
That's a great gift. My background's in real estate, and I remember I have to negotiate my own commission. And it was really hard because I said, well, I can get it somewhere cheaper. And then you're fearful of losing that business, so you actually reduce your rate to get that piece of business. And then you feel bad about it because you feel that my time's worth something, but you've already agreed to that commission. So I can totally relate and see that how we discount our own worth. And I think the audience would appreciate your book and definitely would love to read it. Nafissa, you provided tons of valuable information, and it's very practical, a lot of them, and it's things that we don't think about, and I think you addressed it very well, and I love all your suggestions and tips, and your perspective on things is very different, and so I really appreciate you being on this interview series. Is there any way of how the audience can find you?
Well, if they go to your site, to your page, and they take a download link for that free gift, they can find me there. Or if they'd like to know a little bit more about me, they can go to my own website, which is nafissashireen.com, and there's a lot more detail about my background is there, and they can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. So I'm everywhere in the social world, and I love to connect. So by all means, reach out and connect with me on social media. I love it.
That's great. Well, thank you again. I want to thank everyone who tuned in for our talk, and I want to wish everyone a fantastic day.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.